welcome
to
Masters of Music Podcast. I'm Voldemort.
I'm Derek.
And this is episode 15.
Episode 15? Cause when you're 15, somebody tells you they love you. You better believe it.
This week we have
Fabrizio Grossi.
He is an awesome producer and bass player.
He's worked with guys like Steve Vai, Steve Lukather, Billy Gibbons, Eric Gales, the Chili Peppers. He's produced live albums of Ice-T. He's worked on so many things. He's just an incredible artist all around, professional musician.
And Derek Day.
I've actually played on a couple of his things.
Yeah, he's a total badass. But we got to move on because it's time for
Music News! What's going on, everybody?
My producers. No? Announced it? Okay.
All right. Well, earlier you heard us mention that it's our 15th episode. This guitar is not in tune. That song was written by, I think she's from Tennessee. I don't know where she's from. Taylor Swift. Taylor Swift. So in music news this time around, she has officially ended her contract officially with Big Machine. She signed with them in 2005 when she was 15. And but yeah, so anyway, she 2018 she ended her relationship with Big Machine, but she couldn't own any of the rights. Scott Borchetta, who was the original owner, at least part owner of Big Machine, said they offered her they negotiated some deals where she could buy the rights to music, but maybe it wasn't good enough because she turned both of them down, both offers. Scooter Braun later bought the company for like $300 million, and with that, owned all of Taylor's, the rights to all of her music. So there's been this long ongoing battle, but officially now, she is allowed to re-record them. In November, now it's the day she can start re-recording the first 5 albums in order to keep the rights to her music, which is a lot of work, but it might be worth it. It might be the thing to do.
Yeah, and it's actually 15 years later from when she got signed.
Wow, really?
Yeah, because he's 30 now. So I just looked that up.
Wow.
That's why we can do like a bunch of 15s.
Whoa, man.
Yeah.
This is the 15th episode for sure. Wow, that's really weird.
It's going to be like that movie, the number 23, where Jim Carrey becomes a serial killer.
Yeah.
This is when we get...
Wow, 15 years later. Jeez. That's crazy. So, yeah, I know some other people did things like that. I've just... Ozzy Osbourne did that.
Def Leppard, too.
Def Leppard did that? They re-recorded it?
Yeah.
That's
Pour
insane.
some 15...
Sugar on me. You believe it. More some. But that's crazy. That sounds like so much work, and you kind of, I don't know, you're kind of stepping on your old recordings. Like those are legendary recordings, but they're just redoing it.
Yeah, I know. But the thing is, it's because the record companies are making way too much money off it, and they're not making any money off them anymore.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like that thing where like something you created is now not yours.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I really love the original recordings of like the Def Leppard stuff more than the new ones.
Yeah.
But I totally get what they're doing.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's kind of cool. That's cool.
I think maybe the record industry has to change a little bit and let the artists keep them. Like with Blue Alone, when we were signed, we have the rights, but they're a small indie label. So, but we can do whatever we want with them. I think it was like 2 years after.
Oh wow, that's really cool.
Yeah. So if I think other record labels did that, maybe it'd be a nicer relationship between artists and the record label.
Yeah, like the artist wouldn't want to like leave after their contract is up or negotiate more, feel the need to keep going back and forth, right?
Yeah.
It would be like a family teamwork ethic, which is cool.
Yeah, because I think record labels also need to make money too.
Yeah.
And that's what they do, right?
Yeah. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, it makes sense. But yeah, it's crazy.
Ozzy did it with Blizzard of Oz and Diary of a Madman. He redid all the bass and drum tracks, but it was really just a feud thing. Like the drummer and bassist, they weren't credited on the album, so it's kind of Ozzy's fault, I think, really. And they deserved more, like some kind of money. It wasn't really coming in, but he just got like Robert Trujillo to do all the bass, and he got the guy from Faith No More, Michael B. I'm gonna call you. He got drummer from Faith No More, did all the drums, and so yeah, and he put a little label on the new releases, on the new CD. He's just like everything redone completely by these guys, and it was crazy. So it was also a rebranding thing.
Yeah.
So, so yeah, I don't know. I don't know what really side that. Yeah, like you said, labels need to make money to promote the artist as well, but the artists need to make some sort of money as well.
Yeah, but Ozzy should have given them, like the musicians, like something.
Yeah.
Like that just leads to a whole different fucking conversation where if you're a singer and then you have a guitar player or something, I don't care what band you are. If you're in Pink, like put Justin Derrico's name there. If he fucking recorded guitar tracks or whoever recorded guitar tracks, they deserve to be known, you know?
Yeah.
Because that's the only way. Like in this episode with Fab, we talk about like, how that one gig with Steve Vai led to all of his other gigs.
Yeah.
So that is kind of what could have happened for those musicians that Ozzy screwed over or any other pop artist. Like if people know who it is, then it helps their life, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, say the least. Just give them credit and give them some, some residual just because they made your album that much better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's another reason why we're doing this podcast. We want the people that are not really heard.
Now you're heard.
Yeah, you bark like a dog.
Yes.
No, yeah, we do this podcast so then we fucking
bark at the moon. But yeah, this is what were you gonna say?
Yeah, we do this podcast so other people that don't get the credit, that are super badasses that we know, should get more credit and can inspire other artists and musicians. Yeah. And if you guys know any like musicians that should be on our podcast, let us know. Leave a comment below, like a badass gunslinger or a producer or
someone who needs to get their name out a little bit more and maybe get more gigs from it.
Yeah. We got to move on because it's time for Fabrizio Grossi!
I wanted to know, why Fabrizio is Fabrizio? How? Why? What got you into music? What made you pick up your instrument and take it this far to become, an incredible producer?
Well, thank you. Let me know where I'm sending the check.
To the unemployment office.
First of all, nobody in my family is a musician. I mean, not my family here, my wife, not everybody, but my family of origin in Italy, no one is a musician. I would say that probably there were a lot of artists in my family, meaning people originally. My father was like a wizard with mechanics, with cars, and all of that. And I consider that to be like an artistic talent because you really need to be into it. Mm-hmm. But it was nothing that will kind of like be like music or anything like that. I remember that I always liked to draw. I always been close to art. I always loved museums and history. Always been my favorite subject at school. History and history of the arts and geography. Those were always my humanitarian subjects. Mm. So it was always that attention. Music. I mean, we're going back to what I was telling you about England earlier. When I was around 9 years old, no, 10 years old, my biological mother passed away, and I went to live with my aunt because my father had this business he was starting to do and could not really keep an eye on me the whole day and stuff, you know. But we were very close with my aunt, and ended up in living outside Milan, not too far right now, for the 3 years of junior high. I was really close to my friends from the elementary school, but obviously I had to separate, right?
Yeah.
After junior high, I decided to go back with my dad, and I think I was a little bit older, so I could function.
Hmm.
And my friends from elementary school, they all picked up an instrument. They were all playing. Majority they were playing guitars, drums and stuff. Me, I was not playing anything. Uh, my uncle, my aunt's husband, he was actually an incredible jazz piano player. I mean, that was it wasn't doing it professionally. He was actually the manager of a post office, which actually in Italy is a big deal. It's not like it's a different thing. It's a career on his own, right?
Hmm.
But he always played even when he was young. It's just a very cool player, and he always played that kind of jazz music. That is the jazz that I like stuff from the 20s and the 30s. Some
Ah.
of the music that you hear in those old mafia movies from De Niro and stuff like that, or even in The Godfather. There's a lot of people playing those things. It's a particular type of repertoire of American music, but
Right.
it belongs to that time. It's a very pleasant sound to my ear. Just I guess it's a flashback to memory. But
Maybe
anyways,
some like
it
ragtime stuff too, or yeah.
stuff, but not too dancing. It's like
Right.
it's more. I need to go through it. I will give you some names because it's just some of that stuff is it's good. I mean, obviously, then going into Coltrane and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But they wanted me to learn how to play piano,
Mm.
and I wanted to learn how to play guitar. And I, obviously, not knowing anything about music, my uncle was like, "Look, listen, music is music for everything. Just learn how to play piano. Then you can focus on your instrument. When you're that age, now I want to play guitar. I want to
Yeah.
play guitar.
Yep.
Oh, I play guitar or nothing. So that was nothing. I mean, I regret that.
Yeah, I know.
There's nothing. I wish I could have, because I would be way more ahead of the game. But nothing. I came back to Italy and to Italy. I went back to Milan and hooking up obviously with my friends from elementary school. Kind of like started to hang with them, and some of them they already had like a band and stuff. And obviously we were very close. So I was part of the band, even though I wasn't really. I mean, I would just get like this a guitar. You would barely play, "Smoke on the Water" riff, that kind of thing.
Right. Right.
And I was just trying to get some lessons and stuff, and it wasn't really working. So my friends was like, "Listen, we already have three guitars. I mean, with two guitars, you will be the third one, and you suck. You should play bass." And I was like, "What's bass?" "Well, it's like a guitar, but it's got four strings." Like, "Whoa, sounds easier." Cool. So I bought an electric guitar with some money that I saved. I sold that. Actually, I went back to the store where I bought it from, and I basically traded back in, and I got a bass, like
Wow.
an imitation precision bass from some Japanese brand, like
Yeah.
something that was off.
Nice.
And actually, I was intrigued with the instrument, and I started to use it and play around. Um, Led Zeppelin's record and Black Sabbath's records and Iron Maiden's records. And even though I was like a big fan already back then of black music, um, I guess it was like I did not have. In other words, for some reason, without nobody telling me anything, it was easy for me to pick up and understand the dynamics of what the bass would do in more like in a hard rock context than into like uh, some of the old school Motown or reggae. It's simple for a mixed thing, because sometimes you have the tom technique, it's not really clear, and the bass for that had a different approach. While in bands like Black Sabbath or something like that, bass was like really, really in your face.
Yeah.
And I don't know, it was easy for me to follow it. And then obviously, I always listened to the other music. When I became more familiar with instruments, I started to understand, oh, that's what the bass is doing there. Like that kind of vibe. So that's, I guess, probably why I got close to that. Well, within a year or so, I guess I made some improvement, and I was starting playing with a bunch of different bands. Right.
Hmm.
One of these bands is the one with these friends that met me in London when I was there studying, and we
Hmm.
ended up in going to see a concert.
Mm.
which was Castle Donington. Castle Donington could be the equivalent of today's Hellfest, something like that.
Oh,
120,000.
Yeah.
Sorry, there's flies. And
Yeah, we have them too.
yeah.
it's just ridiculous. The end of this is, I guess, the cold is starting, so they all come inside.
Yeah.
And that night was actually insane because there was a bunch of. I mean, I witnessed history. Ronnie James Dio played the first show with his band Dio, with Vivian
Oh,
Campbell, and all this stuff, and that was like mind blowing. It was just insane. Then I
yeah.
saw Meatloaf, a bunch of other British and American bands, and funny enough, ZZ Top on their biggest European show, and that's that was actually an argument that with Billy we talked about it. The closing band was Whitesnake, but not the Whitesnake that everybody knows in America from 1987, the big hair and all of
Yeah.
that. But Whitesnake, they were just fresh out when Coverdale and John Lord were just fresh out of Deep Purple. So it was more like a rock blues, a lot of soul too, but kind of like in the British way, with a little bit of a Deep Purple touch. The show was fantastic, and um, in England, they were very feisty, I would say, fans and stuff, doing shows and stuff. So they would throw everything. It was just like a mess. But
Wow.
when was they started playing, and they ended up in playing a cover of Bobby Blue Blood, "Ain't No Love in the Heart of the City." The whole thing just completely changed, and it was like almost like a magical experience. And when I just living that, I was like, wow, I love this. It's just I want to do this. This is just great. So it take that, and after 4 months, I saw the only show the Queen has ever done in Italy, in Milan, and that's another thing that just completely changed my life. I mean, with Freddie Mercury, obviously, and
Yeah.
it was. And after I saw those two things were the one that kind of like put me on the path to do this, to do
Wow.
music. I mean, obviously, all the music before and Bob Marley and all of that, but those shows were like, I guess, because I was already playing, I was kind of like already understanding what an instrument does, can do, cannot do, what I could do with it, all the other things that I needed to learn to get better and all of that, and just get dropped into this kind of environment, phenomenon. And I think that kind of like really planted the seeds for all this. Then obviously I had bands, throughout like everybody else does. We ended up in signing with a big label in Italy, and I had a band called Layout. And the label ended up in sending us to Canada uh, to, play with some American and Canadian bands and just get a little bit more familiar with, the English language. I mean, I was lucky because even though I wasn't like really fluent in English, I also worked as a stage designer at the theater in Milan, Teatro alla Scala. That's for like opera and classic stuff, right? I was,
Mm.
worked stage designer and the director, Franco Zeffirelli. But I also worked as a stage manager with a big promoter in Italy. Funny enough, it's the same promoter that now brings Supersonic Blues Machine, and just I always have a crack with the boss because back he knew me when I was a little kid, and he says like I
Wow.
couldn't believe it. That back then I could, just almost like not paying you, and now you're bleeding me dry every time.
God
But
damn.
hey, I guess we'll move forward. And doing that, I had the chance to meet a lot of other great musicians, and and just get familiar with what's going on. So um, we ended up in going to Canada with, and we're coming back, and like it happens with bands, uh, A&R changes, little fights, whatever it is, and the band broke up, and I decided to move. Actually, originally I was going to go back to Toronto because that's where we're going, and I had a lot of friends over there. There was a great music scene. You could make a lot of money even just playing cover or playing your original, but also be part of a cover band and stuff. It was just like a great time for music. But unlucky, unluckily for me, when I moved out there, the scene was changing a bit, and I was married to a different person. Went there, and we ended up in taking like a quick visit to New York, and we were shocked.
Mm.
And we decided to give New York a try. So we went back to Italy, packed everything up, just sold whatever we needed to sell, and came back here and never looked back. That's
Wow.
how it started.
Oh
Yeah.
wow, my
But I
God.
didn't know anybody in New York. I zero, zero.
Wow. You were shocked when you got to New York. What shocked you?
Shocked in a good way
Uh,
because um, I'm coming from Milan, which is very, it's like I would say the Italian or the European version of New York. So
mm,
it's not the traffic and all of that. It's just like how everything was like moving fast, and you get to meet people, and I was just like a completely different vibe. Even for us in Los Angeles, I mean, just never mind, for example, what you do and the people that you know in the music business and all of that. But it took you time to meet them, and you grew up in this town. And here it was like really, it's easy because I know everywhere you go, you have a musicians. Hey, ciao, what's up? In New York, it's not like that. I mean, it happens to be cool, but more like in the jazz world
mm.
and urban hip hop and Latin community. So I used to go on Monday night to the China Club to see all the jams, and that's how I started to meet people and all that. And I remember one of the first few nights I was there, and I keep telling this to my friend James Lamens, a great bass player. He used to play with a band called White Lion, but he played also with Megadeth, with David Lee Roth. Right now he's been with John Fogerty for the last 12 years. But dude, you came in to some people that I knew that were living in my building. They were having a show. I was in backstage with them. And you came in with Ace Frehley, and you guys were broke. I ended up in paying you beers. And then Ace Frehley got completely fucked up for it. That was my first experience.
Oh God! Damn! Oh my God! Jeez. But who was that? Who was that in White Line and Megadeth?
James Lomenzo.
James Lomenzo, bass
James
player.
Lomenzo. Damn, that's freaking nuts.
Great guy. Great guy and awesome bass player.
Oh
He
man.
lives actually not too far from me here in Santa Clarita.
Oh, cool.
Cool. What's
Awesome.
his address?
Je ne sais pas.
So would you say what would you say would be your first big like break? Was it that band that got like signed, or was it?
Yeah,
No,
layout.
that's like, dude, when you get signed, I think. I mean, for us in Europe, it was a different thing because we used to see all these like rock bands from the States and stuff. And in the 80s, actually, there was like a big explosion of rock and Bon Jovi appeared in Europe and all this. So
Yeah.
people started to kind of getting a little bit more receptive of rock music. Maybe over there when you would get signed, it would be like, oh my God, yeah, well, we got a deal and all of it. But generally, as a musician, you should know that when you get signed, it's like, okay, now the work starts. It's not an arrival, an arrival point. It's actually a departure point.
Right.
But sorry, I completely lost the train of thought. What was the question?
No,
That's good though.
that's
That's
genius.
No,
yeah.
no, no.
That's
I know, but what was the question? What were you I went.
No, the question was like, what was your first big break? Was that
Oh,
getting that
big break. I'm
sign?
sorry.
Or?
I would say so. Basically, we were doing that, but that was just part of the growing up. It's like you know, uh, any bands that plays ended up in opening up for somebody. I mean, those are experience. I think my really main significant break was with Steve Vai
mm,
in 1996. I ended up recording with Steve. Steve has always been believe it or not, an idol of mine, and now we're like uh, very, very good friends. I consider him like my older brother. He helped me so much on a bunch of different things beyond music. It's like, I guess it's like my mentor on a lot of levels.
yeah.
It's just that back then when I lived for about 5 years in New York, right?
Hmm.
And I had a band there. Actually, I was playing with two bands. Those were the post 80s, so everything was like super blah 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 blah, blah
Yeah.
shiny and flash and all that kind of stuff, right? But um, I don't know to explain it. We're coming from that world, but I was I've always been, like I said, very attached to black music and a different kind of playing. That was not really what I was actually doing at the moment. And when I came out to Los Angeles, I ended up in almost immediately hooking up with Nina Hagen, who's a German punk icon, and
Hmm.
I started playing with them. I was running a Thursday night club between La Brea and Hollywood Boulevard. It was the only club that was playing actually rock music from 70s, 80s, 90s, but with tendency of the heavy stuff. And that was not the scene back then because grunge took over and Los Angeles was just completely all over the place. And I met a bunch of different people, and I wanted to, obviously to do more stuff with the instruments and all of that. And even though I was meeting musicians and nobody really knew me and stuff, and I guess, again, coming from the 80s where everybody was just a super monster player, people will look at you like, oh, but can you do this? Can you do that? Can you do that? And I think just after I started working with Steve, just recorded several things with Steve, I think it gets the rumor got around. And back then, if you work with Steve, I mean, that automatically would give you credibility, meaning, okay, well, this guy knows what he's doing. Not really, because I'm not one of those guys. I'm not a musician like Vi or my other bigger brother, Steve Lukather. I'm kind of like always fake my way around. But so far, nobody nobody ever figured it out. So I was able to pull that shit off for a long time. But there's a lot of things, obviously, that I guess worked good for Steve in having me working with him. And I guess those are the kind of things that I ended up in embracing for as a base for all my work as productions as a musician. And, that's what's, I guess, I consider as my first break, the collaboration with Steve. Not even with Nina. And again, I'm not saying this to be disrespectful with Nina or anything, or my even previous band. It's just like, again, you sit down for 3 days in studio with Steve Vai, you leave, all of a sudden, people know who you are. I started to get endorsements, calls, people that I didn't even know who they were, just getting calls from like, hey, you like to play here? Hey, just, what bass instruments you play? What amps are you play? That kind of stuff, So, more than actually what happens today. But I think that was definitely what kind of like, broke the ice.
Wow.
Damn, yeah.
Okay.
Final
The
five.
final five. Okay, so number one. What is the most important piece of gear, secret weapon, while on tour or in the studio?
I would say probably as a musician, for me, when I play, my pedal board.
Ah.
Because um, I really made it a mission of not playing bass like other people, and a lot of my bass playing it's attached to sure the parts that I come up with, but the sound.
Right.
And I think without that kind of sound, you don't really get the full Fabs experience.
Wow.
Oh.
And it's not in terms of like, oh, I cannot play with it. I mean, I can play. It's not that I cannot do it, but it's like, you know, um, uh,
It just
like we
doesn't
were saying
feel like
before,
it.
think like those old reggae songs and Bob Marley without the reverb, or think, like Vi playing "Living in Paradise," doing that solo and not having the delay. Can you play with it acoustic? Of course you could play, but it's not going to be the same thing. I like to have those kind of sounds and stuff to kind of like help me present the whole thing right. It's like Alice Cooper's got his props; those are my props.
Wow,
Awesome.
nice. Yeah, that's the Fabrizio. That's just the signature sound. Yeah.
If you wanna, yeah, I guess, yeah, we can call it like that. Yeah, the element is one of the elements, one of the ingredients.
Right. Paprika.
Okay, number two.
Number two.
What is the most memorable or crazy story from the road? This is when it gets dirty.
Oh,
It doesn't have to get too dirty.
I mean, I got like two or three per decade. Per decade, like three of these at least. So, wow. And that's the thing. That's where I'm getting in trouble here.
Yeah,
Yeah, you don't have
hey,
to.
No,
that's
no,
why I
funny
said
what you say
memorable
involves other
too.
people too. And if I mention the other people too, that's where I'm getting in trouble. I
Ah.
think I need to thank memorable because you already know where we're going with this.
Yeah, because
Um,
memorable means clean. Crazy doesn't mean clean. So you can use memorable.
well,
We've
it's
had.
all that. It's just that sometimes it's just like some crazy stuff. I mean, like you know, from blowing up a couple of amps and everybody making fun, or oh, well, I just I give you like I'm vegetarian. I don't I don't drink and everything. That's for health reasons. But so I don't indulge in any of that no more. But during the last tour that we did with Supersonic, we played a show in Suwałki. It's a big blues festival in Poland, very close to Estonia.
Yeah, we're
And
Polish.
Yeah, yeah.
excuse me,
I don't know.
I know,
Oh yeah,
I
you
know
know.
it.
Oh, this is catered to
It's,
us.
and
Nice.
they were a bunch of Russian friends of mine, dear friends of mine. For someone from the bands that I was telling you, they came to see us and to visit us, right? And they brought me, like they always do, because my friends are incredibly generous, and and I love to hang with Russians. I always had a great time.
Mm-hmm.
They brought me these custom organic homemade vodka. Uh,
Oh,
in Russia, they call it samagon.
wow.
It's like dirty. It's not clear. I mean, it's like brownish, kind of like it's like a golden tequila kind of vibe as a color.
Wow.
And they have different aromatic uh, mm, flavors, black flavors like licorice or um, blueberries, that kind of stuff. But very light. It's not like it's not a schmack. Okay,
Yeah.
it's just like vodka. And the way they do vodka in Russia, it's like religion. So they filter and triple filter, so it's super smooth and stuff. Well, we finished the show with Billy, with his wife, the band and stuff, and the show went fantastic. I mean, it was like 12,000 people. Everybody was having a great time. And then Oleg, my friend, just started opening up this thing. And we started a party at the venue, and we took it back to the hotel. That was the following day. It was a traveling day, so we didn't. And I think I probably drank uh, half of Russia and whatever was left out of Poland too. It was just so crazy because we're all like that. And in the hotel, in my room, obviously I was sharing the room with my wife because she's one of the backup vocalists for the band,
Ah,
and she was in the bathroom taking a shower and everything, and I couldn't go in. And I remembered that I needed to club, so I ended up in getting the buckets and just I don't even remember because that's all the things they were filled out all the buckets and every morning, there's the lobby call, so my wife gets and I need to go and take another shower because I was in no condition to walk.
uh,
And I remember that I was walking down the stairs. I got into the bus. Everybody was making fun of me and everything because I was the one that got that. Because I generally don't do that. I never. Obviously, being the
right.
musical director and stuff, I always trying to kind of like keep it together. But that night, I know that we could have fun. And
Yeah.
that was the first time that we had to celebrate with the new lineup with Chris, with Billy, and all of it. So we went all for it.
Yeah.
I probably filled out like two or three different buckets, throughout the room, and I completely forgot to empty. And I remember that the tour bus was waiting right at the entrance of the hotel, and when I was walking up on at the balcony, the maid was out on the balcony like this, looking down with a disgusted face. So I ended up in having just kind of like collected some money, just like the zlotys, the money that they have locally, and putting some other dollars. And we ended up in getting a nice envelope and just to the promoter, leave her a nice tip for everything that she had to take care of the room.
Oh,
But I mean, I never felt so embarrassed, but also so I would say not happy, but kind of like amused about it because that's not the kind of stuff that I mean. I wasn't doing that for at least like but it's the kind of stuff that obviously and actually I will have to ask Billy because he has plenty of pictures of me in very uh, odd positions with so
oh
it will
God.
be documented at some point. I know that he put it together in a good way.
Oh
a
God.
mon It'll be like a montage for you. He'll send it to you on Valentine's Day.
Yeah. So that's actually one of the craziest, almost least memorable stories because you can't really remember a lot of that night.
No, actually, I don't remember what happened. No, I remember up to the moment that we started fighting, and to the moment where um, and up to the moment where I don't remember anything else afterwards. But
Oh.
up to that moment, it was great.
Awesome.
Okay, all right. All right. Number three. I love asking this one. What are your tips for songwriting?
Well, you should ask a songwriter.
You are a
Ah.
songwriter. Come on.
Uh, um, sorry, there's people living.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
um, I'm well. I think. I mean, since songwriting is something that it's very. I mean, for artists like us that kind of like do their own music and never don't really pay attention to what's the talk of town or within the top 10 nowadays, that it doesn't have to be like that. In other words, that you are not uh, a team writer or you're not trying to play songs so then you can place them, but you just write song in general is for yourself.
Right.
I think the best tip that I can possibly give you is make sure that you putting down is exactly what uh, comes from you. It comes to you when you think about what you're doing, without limitation. Meaning, do not start thinking, oh, uh, it's getting too long because of, I cannot, then they're not going to play it on the radio, or
Right.
it's too fast, it's too slow, or anything like that. If you're writing a song and you're writing a song for yourself, the song for me is just like taking a note or taking a photo, something like we're doing a chat right now. You guys making a video recording that's going to be there 2 days from now and possibly 1,000 years from now. That you documented whatever's happening right now in this
Yeah.
moment, right? Songwriting for me is the same thing. It just capture a particular, maybe a feeling, an emotion, a thought, or a specific moment in time.
Mm.
And just make sure that you do that. Don't start thinking with too many bullshit and, oh, but I don't have the right sound, or um, oh, but it's too long, but I do not know the words or anything like that. Just go natural, really organic. That's possibly because there's always time to go back and redo and check and fix and whatever. Even though that's still part of the same advice, don't do that. Meaning, just make sure that whatever you do, it's presentable, but don't start to over masturbate the idea, because then it becomes sterile and it becomes maybe perfect, maybe musically excellent, but it's losing everything that was part of uh, the original the original inspiration that you had. That's for me, it's the most important thing.
Mm.
I'm still a believer of the first track is the first track is probably first take is probably the best.
Right.
Um, Maybe with the songwriting, uh, not the whole first take, but I would say a good 75% yes, because when you sit down to write a song, it's not that, okay, I'm going to sit down to write a song. You don't do that. You actually try to find the time to sit down and document what it's been coming through your head, or what you put aside, and this recurrent thought. And that moment in which in that specific moment in which you document this idea, I think that's where you kind of like just don't forget about what you need to do with this, or where is it going, or whatever it is. What was the idea? Just put it down, like as is, and just trying to keep it as simple as possible. And then you can go back later, and if it's still kind of like uh, resonate within you, just like the idea that you had in your mind, and then you had to put down, then it means that you have something good, and just continue with it. But don't utterly overfuck it, because it's irrelevant. Like, think of the Beatles, for example. I mean, they did everything they were doing in 4 tracks. Like,
Yeah.
Sgt. Pepper was recorded on 4 tracks, which is
Wow.
importance. I mean, I always trying to follow that George Martin credo, which was it's I don't care how you record. I mean, I don't give importance to the technology that we use to record. I give importance to what it's being recorded. You know,
Mm.
so
Yeah.
all these things to go and record in the big studio and all of that, I think it's just all, whatever. Yeah, it's cool, great, fantastic, but that's not making a good song.
Yeah.
Um, I think part of that is just how simple and how good is the message that you need to get. Because if you take any one of those Beatles songs out of Sgt. Pepper, or even later,
Mm.
and you start to strip the multiple vocal overlaps and the orchestra and all of that, and you just play those songs, acoustic guitar and vocals, they work just fine.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So I mean, if you can obtain that, and I understand that not all this genre are the same. I mean, especially the stuff that I do, it's groove oriented. It would never come around with nothing, just playing a bass line and just singing. I mean, you need other things to make it work. I understand it, but then if that is the core of what I'm about to do, that's just what I do.
Yeah.
And approaching stuff that way never really let me down. Never.
Right.
With any kind of style and every kind of music.
Wow.
Damn. That's super good.
Yeah. Resonance. Let it resonate. True to yourself. Don't overkill. Don't stick to anyone's thing. I love it. That's amazing. And of course, the test of time, the acoustic. You sing it, play an acoustic. There you go.
Hmm.
Then you know you got one.
Absolutely.
That's badass.
Oh yeah, man. So number
In fact, we're
four.
only playing acoustic guitar.
Yeah.
Okay, number four. Number four. What is your favorite lick or technique that has helped your playing?
I know that is a very cliche thing to say because I guess that's the first thing that, especially if you're a guitar player, you're getting um, majorly penalized by other guitar players and your teacher when you do that. It's like when you resolve to like pentatonic scales. This is like, oh, you're a cheater, or you don't put in time and all of that. For me, actually, that was like it saved me a lot because like I was coming from minor harmonic and all of that, and even though I'm a self-taught musician, I didn't really go to school study and musicians used to do any of that.
Yeah.
I kind of like always trying to get all these kind of things right. It's when I start really to kind of like get into the blues stuff and understanding the power of those kind of scales. Um, I tend to apply those not only for bass lines but also for melodies, but with a twist. The good thing about like a pentatonic scale, and I'm talking about meaning the main, minor pentatonic,
Yeah.
right?
Hmm.
Typical blues, BB King, like not when he gets on the jazzy chords, but the typical blues stuff, like Hendrix stuff.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I mean, how many other uh, instances you have to play minor over major and still sound cool?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Generally, you don't. I like the fact of having the freedom that if I wanted to get something to sound like that, that's my sound. And there are a couple of things that I do um, that revolve a lot around those kind of sounds. And to be honest with you, uh, maybe because at this point I don't give a shit no more, and if I like it, I forget whether it's wrong or right. But I find that fitting in regardless the chord structure um, to fit in fine. I mean, again, if we're talking about me and my sound and what I need to do, whether it's me as an artist or something that I'm producing that needs to have my footprint. If I
Right.
have to do something for somebody else, I will never just play around with other people's music like the way I do it with mine, unless they ask me to it. And if it's something that I need to deliver, that's what it is. And I'm producing another artist, it's his record, not mine, his or her record. So I need to be respectful with that. But when it comes down to my stuff, all bets are off. I don't give a shit. I mean,
Yeah.
worst comes to worst, you stumble into a jazz moment. You know,
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
people made a career out of that. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Oh
No.
wow.
and also, and also just like that in combination with um, the constant, I guess, playing. One thing that, uh, and I guess it's one of the reasons why I also left the old super flashy mega rock speed thing aside, is the fact of the groove itself. Bass is a very interesting instrument. You can play just one note per bar and create the basic of a song um, and set the tone. But the fact of being able to play what I play as a bass player, even their simple licks, but almost like if a drummer would play it, that's something. This is like Larry Graham school. Like Larry Graham was explaining about this thing as popping and slapping technique.
Right.
Uh, he probably was the most famous guy, the guy that started that kind of
Yeah.
right? He was saying that the reason why he started to do that is because when he started playing originally with his family, they were doing music for the church. They did not have a drummer. They could not afford to have one. And they were playing both in the church, that there was no room for the drums, and then they would have to play around and move from one party to another with him and his brother, his mom, whatever it is. So basically, there was a tambourine, of course, and all of it, but he needed to play the bass, but also he needed to have something that would play the drums. So that you had the so basically with one instrument you had to cover a couple of things, right? Uh, I don't do that because because he's Larry Graham and I'm not,
Yeah.
and also because I'm now that we all tend to play with the drummer, so that's cool. However,
Yeah.
just like drummers, they could play pa pa pa, or when you have a good drummer, they two pa pa. It's got
Yeah.
those notes in it that it's the same tempo, but for some reason, all of a sudden, it gets spiced up, right?
Yeah.
I like to do that when I play and play a lot of like mute notes. That's kind of like something that I acquire between from the technique of Larry Graham and the playing of Rocco Prestia from Tower of Power. He was the monster of that. I mean, he had freaking fingers like it was a locomotive. But
Yeah.
it's also just muted. Like if you find a way to use that into, for example, a bass line like one of the songs that we're talking about, doom doo doo doom doo doom doo doo doom doom. Yeah, with a drummer, that already could be good, right? But think if you were playing doom doo doom 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 doo doo doo. And it's kind of like almost you're giving the drummer like a loop to play on it. It's like adding percussion to it. And again, come on, you guys also have a Latin element, so I know percussive sounds are a really big part of your heritage. That's it's just that's for me the beauty of you know Latin music is just that the approach and the simplicity, but then the organized chaos that are all the different percussion partners. If you're able to get something like that involved with a very simple bass line and what the drummer is playing, just you create something that where people try to learn it, they will just pick up the notes that you're playing and they will never sound the same because that's just the front call.
Yeah.
And so that's the other thing that I use a lot. Very simple bass lines, generally around pentatonic scale and all of that. Not because I do not know the other scale, but because that one represents the most what I do, and I can easily switch between major and to minor without sounding like an idiot, but just sounding like myself. So even
Right.
if it's maybe harmonically wise weird, well, but that's how I play it. So nobody can say nothing. And just trying to add this kind of sound, percussive sounds, and all of that.
Oh wow, that's
Yeah.
awesome. I love that. Especially the percussive thing. That's all about touch. Just like that touch. You don't. You add your certain elements. You play in between some things, and yeah, switching major to minor and unconventionally.
Mm-hmm.
That's the way. I love that. That is kind of creating like
Mm-hmm.
your own jazz stew.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's plenty of people that already do the same thing out there. You didn't need another one, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And if you're playing always in time and you have rhythmic stuff on it, no matter what note you play, it's always on purpose.
Yep.
So it's the kind of thing. There's every note is like there's a thing with Jason Becker where he always bends the note that's out of tunes. It's a half step. Then it's in tune. Then it's in the right scale or whatever.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of thing. The
He
the
just
rhythm.
does it in time. He does it
Yeah.
right. He saves himself
And
right
it's
in the nick
and
of
it's
time.
actually good when the note is the wrong note, but then leads to the perfect note, right? And all that
Uh,
weird stuff.
Oh,
But
good. There's no wrong note. It's
right.
only up to where you land.
yeah,
Yeah.
If you land on I don't know, let's say you're in C major, you end up ending in C sharp, that might be kind of odd if you finish there. But hey, to a point, because maybe
yeah,
that's what you want to say, and that's fine. But if you use this as a passage, who's got to say that is right or wrong? They
yeah,
didn't write that song, you did. So
yeah.
yeah,
If you just bend it a little or slide it to the B, then you get a beautiful nine or
Yeah.
whatever. If you want to get super crazy, but
but you know what? That's something though. What you were saying, and this kind of like try to sound like me at least. It's something that, fun enough, uh, I mean, technique-wise, plenty of monster bass player out there to learn from. Okay, so I'm not saying this because I don't respect my peers. Absolutely not. Quite the opposite. But I think I got the bug of trying to be more original with my own playing, at least for my music, more from guitar players than from bass players. At least for the guitar players that I was blessed to work with, I work with some, I guess, icons in the music business, and everyone had a very distinct sound and approach, and everyone's got a couple of things that are very distinct and unique, and there's nothing better, I think, if you're a musician. It's like look, I mean, God bless his soul, but Eddie Van Halen.
Right.
yeah,
I mean, you could tell that guy that Eddie was playing guitar after the first note.
Yeah.
There was no need to wait for two notes. You just like first one, same thing. Vi is the same.
Yep.
Steve Lukather, same. Vernon is the same. You
Yep.
get these kind of cats. And working with these kind of guys and see how much that it's part of their playing makes you kind of like discover that element of building your own dictionary or vocabulary or list of the things that you can do and really go for it. Unfortunately, bass players sometimes are always relegated to the back of the room on the stage, and they don't really get the soft spots. So they always have actually, and the more conventionally they play, they make everybody happy. They don't step on anybody's toes. Well, you know what, bitches? This is my gig. I'm hiring you guys. I'm not in this case, but what I'm saying is, if I'm doing something and I put everything together, I don't need to stay behind with the drummer. I can participate into this, make my own sound without getting in your way. And that's something that, again, it's something that I learned from a big guitar player, how to really try to kind of always try to sneak in a couple of things that are yours,
Yeah.
Yeah.
in any kind of circumstances.
Oh wow, that's the third technique, to just be around those kind of big players, those notable guys, those original guys. Man, oh man, damn, there's so much there. I love that.
It kind of leads to the final five.
Oh yes, the last question.
This is the final five.
You kind of answered this. Should I ask it?
Yeah.
Okay. You kind of just answered this actually, but I mean, here it is. The last question. What is the best advice you would give a person looking to do what you do?
Meaning production, playing bass.
To be
What?
you.
To be Fabrizio.
Like if somebody wanted
To
to
be
be
this-
Fabrizio, how would they?
Don't.
Don't.
It's already me. Why do you want to do what I do? Do your own thing.
Bam.
That is it.
I mean,
Oh.
I'm flattered if somebody wants to do some of the stuff that I do. I mean, of course. I mean, everybody would be, but I don't really see the point. Because if you do somebody else stuff, I mean, unless you're like, for example, we're musicians, so we're talking about somebody else's music. Unless you're in a cover band and you have to do that because that's required and it's work, or you have to learn a song, whatever it is. What's the point of trying to do what the other person is doing? Because if you're trying to do, like, your guys were talking about Billy Sheehan before. Billy is a good friend of mine. Back in the days, I learned all this stuff. And they say as much as Stu had his first solo record, second free radio album or something. I even forgot the title. I knew how to play all that record. And as much as I learned, and I put in time into learning how to play that record, I put in time into forgetting how to play that record. Because that's to him. And I appreciate his technique and all of that. But that's his thing. And me try to do that, I will always be number two because he did it first.
Right.
And I don't like to be number two.
Yeah.
I mean, I could be number 3 or 4 if we're in a team. But if we're trying to create something or to present something, that you cannot afford to be number 2, because otherwise your message is always going to get lost behind somebody else.
Yeah.
Right. Damn. Holy shit. Laying the smackdown of knowledge, Fabrizio. Yeah. That's freaking awesome. Well, there you go. That's it. Thank you so much, Fabrizio.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you guys for having me. And yes, so now it's I need to go. So, but thank you, and just let me know when it's ready. We'll share it, and we'll do
Awesome.
more.
Oh, that was badass.
Thank you, Fabrizio. That
Dude.
was amazing.
Super awesome. Thanks for being on our show. We loved you, man.
Yeah, you are truly a jack of all trades. You make videos, you're a manager, you music director, producer, bass player, but we got really into music, which I thought was like really cool. We got into the theory of music, which was great.
Fuck yeah, man. You're a badass. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned. Next week we got another badass artist, so bye.
Bye.